am I the only one that kind of thinks Dr. Stone doesn't really get the attention that it kind of deserves, despite it being like a top tier like manga? Is it just me? Because like I feel like the latest season was kind of really slept on and not too many people talked about it, and I'll be one of the first people to admit I kind of slept on it. Like I didn't really watch it weekly to weekly just because I don't know, I haven't really watched so much anime, but when I do watch anime, I really enjoy it. But then I started rewatching Dr. Stone season 3 and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now my question is, why does no one talk about Dr. Stone? Not even the manga. In my opinion, this is one of those like shonen series. It's really up there, but it just doesn't really get the attention it deserves compared to some of the other shonen series that have come out in like the past few years. Hell, Demon Slayer overshadowed this. Like a bunch of other ones like overshadowed it. Almost every other shonen that you could think of that was published in Shonen Weekly Jump really overshadowed Dr. Stone. To me, this is like one of my favorite like mangas ever. It's one of my favorite series ever. I still remember like binge watching like this series back during the pandemic era, which was back in 2020. It's been like 4 years now, which is crazy to think about how time kind of flies by. I still remember being excited for Stone Wars and for the first season of Dr. Stone. After watching that first season, I binge read the entire series, and then on TikTok I just kept making like weekly videos about the chapters dropping, and with the latest announcement that we are getting a fourth and final season of Dr. Stone, I really hope they do it justice, because to me the South American arc, whatever you want to call it, is probably the best arc in the entire series, where they're trying to go to the moon. You meet Dr. Stanley and all these other characters. To me, it is really one of the best things I have read. Like the writing is really good, the comedy is top notch, the battles feel very lively, and while I'm not really super satisfied with the conclusion of Dr. Stone, I think it was okay. It did open up the possibilities to like a future series, which there actually is a spin-off series off the main series that takes place after the series ended. I think it's called Dr. Stone Future Science or something like that. I only found out about it, and it's actually a monthly series. Go check that out. But yeah, Dr. Stone to me is a series that doesn't really get too much love and attention, so I just kind of want to talk about it, why I think it's a pretty fantastic series. Because to me, Dr. Stone has an incredibly wide range of characters, some of the most diverse character designs I have seen next to Sakamoto Days. Like all the character designs are super unique, and you can call Dr. Stone isekai. Technically it's an isekai because it takes place in a different world, but not in the same world, if that makes sense. So if you're not familiar with the premise of Dr. Stone, essentially after a global cataclysm that like turns everyone into stone, Senko wakes up like 3,500 years in the future, and his job is to rebuild society. Dr. Stone to me is really a unique series that like honestly doesn't really get too much attention. I don't know if it's because it has too much comedy in it. I don't know, because it doesn't really take itself too seriously at times, because it focuses more on like the science aspect, and not too many people are really invested in that, which doesn't really make sense to me, because I know there's series out there that talk about food specifically, and they do food, or that they focus on baseball, that they focus on sports, whatever the case is. I don't know, something about Dr. Stone, whenever I try to recommend this to people, most people are usually kind of turned off about this, because when I mention the plot, it sounds pretty interesting. Up until I mention the fact that it's like science related, most people just kind of get like, I don't know if it's because people are not really big into like scientific type of stuff, or they're not big into like academic type of stories. But to me, Dr. Stone doesn't really feel like that. Doesn't really feel forced. Like the science just goes along with the story. Like the first season itself just kind of like explores the elements of science within the story, and it makes it pretty fun. It really goes hand in hand with some of the characters like Senko, and then you have other characters like Chrome who have no clue what science is, and they're just kind of confused and bemused by, okay, so science can do all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it absolutely can. I don't know, I really enjoy Dr. Stone because the conflicts feel, at times they do feel silly, but at the same time they feel very kind of something that would happen like if you put a bunch of kids, like gave them the option, hey, you gotta rebuild the world, but you gotta do it in a certain way. Like in a world where there's no adults and like the only people that run society is kind of like teenagers and early adults, of course they're gonna get like troubled kids, of course they're gonna get like troubled scenarios, which ultimately makes this series pretty fun. I really enjoy Dr. Stone, mostly for the fact of how crazy and somewhat grounded it is. Of course in the later arcs it does get pretty serious, and as far as deaths go, there is deaths, but it's kind of tricky to say. It's more of a like fun, go along adventure type of series. The way I like to describe this series to most people is kind of like Minecraft, but isekai. That's honestly the best way to describe Dr. Stone, because it does have those science elements like I mentioned. All the character designs look absolutely awesome. If you've read the manga, then you know Boichi does the art super amazing. Like to me, Dr. Stone has some of the best art I have seen in almost any manga like ever. To me, like the art in Dr. Stone is like so good. I haven't really read a manga that comes even close with the amount of detail, the amount of like drawings I have seen in Dr. Stone. They just look super good. Like the physique of some of these characters just looks so unique and so interesting. I really don't know why more people don't give Dr. Stone a shot, even though Dr. Stone was pretty up there when it was like in its Weekly Shonen Jump era and it ended like a year or two ago. I still think people should read this. It's kind of a hidden gem in my opinion. Like when people talk about Dr. Stone, I always get kind of excited because I can actually meet more Dr. Stone people, but I don't really get to meet that many because people don't seem to want to read this series, which is kind of a shame because it has everything you could ask for in a shonen series, but with all the more adventure, with all the more comedy. It is really fun. Like some of the jokes absolutely do land, and that's one of the reasons it's my top like 5 favorite like manga ever, mostly because of the art style, mostly because of the characters, how somewhat realistic that they feel, like all the wacky adventures that they go on. Like there's so many characters, there's so many cool spins, unique twists and turns that happen throughout the story. They just keep you wanting more, especially the world building in this series. I really enjoy the world building like that it goes throughout the manga and like throughout some of the spin-off series. It's really fantastic. And to say you don't want to read Dr. Stone, to say you don't want to watch Dr. Stone because it seems kind of boring, nah, you gotta get out of it. You really gotta give Dr. Stone a shot, because to me, Dr. Stone is really like is a hidden gem among most shonen series that I've seen or read. Like go give it a shot. Like if you're not convinced, definitely go give it, because it's pretty cool. If you like amazing art, you will 100% love the Dr. Stone manga. If you want something comedic, yeah, sure, the anime is not as good as the manga, because then again, most series, the manga tends to be better than the actual anime. Unless you're JJK, then the anime is better than the manga. But go read / watch Dr. Stone. Trust me, you won't regret it. It's really good. And yeah.